There is a rule that can determine whether you live the next decade in stability or in financial stress. And I'm not talking about motivational quotes that sound powerful but disappear when the bills arrive. I'm talking about a real, practical financial principle, proven by history, that protected an entire nation from economic collapse. Let me ask you something directly. Have you ever heard of the 20% rule? Some people think it's modern. Something created by financial advisors. Something born in business schools or investment conferences. But here's the surprising truth. This rule is thousands of years old. It was not invented on Wall Street. It was not developed by a contemporary economist. It was implemented by one of the most brilliant economic administrators of the ancient world. His name was Joseph. Yes, the same Joseph who was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, imprisoned unjustly, and who rose to become the second most powerful man in Egypt. Most people focus on the dramatic parts of his story. Few focus on his financial genius. And that's where everything changes. When Pharaoh had a troubling dream, no one could interpret it. 7 fat cows devoured by 7 thin cows. 7 full ears of grain consumed by dry ones. It wasn't just symbolic. It was economic. Joseph explained it clearly. 7 years of extreme abundance were coming, followed by 7 years of devastating famine. Production would explode. Then scarcity would erase the memory of prosperity. Now here is what separates dreamers from leaders. Joseph didn't say, "Let's enjoy the good years and worry later." He didn't say, "God will provide so we don't need a plan." He designed a system. During the 7 years of abundance, Egypt would store 20% of all production. Not leftovers. Not what felt comfortable. Not what remained after spending. A precise 20%. 1/5. That is structured discipline. That is long-term vision. That is understanding that prosperity is a season, not a permanent guarantee. And here is where this ancient story becomes extremely modern. Today, when income rises, spending rises. When businesses grow, lifestyles inflate. When the economy expands, discipline relaxes. Most people use abundance to increase comfort. But comfort is not stability. Joseph understood something many ignore. Seasons change. Markets rise and fall. Jobs are not eternal. Businesses do not always grow. Opportunities do not always remain. The biggest financial mistake you can make is assuming your current income is permanent. Because when you assume permanence, you loosen discipline. And when you loosen discipline, you become vulnerable. The 20% rule is more than a number. It is a mindset. When you earn $1,000, you learn to live on $800. When you earn $5,000, you refuse to build a lifestyle around $5,000. When your business explodes in revenue, your spending does not explode with it. It means that during summer you prepare for winter. And here is an uncomfortable truth. Winter always comes. It may be an economic downturn. It may be a health crisis. It may be the loss of a major client. It may be a market shift. We don't know when. But history proves cycles are inevitable. Joseph understood this thousands of years ago. If this is speaking directly to your situation, write in the comments. May God guide my finances. And subscribe to the Biblical Money Code, where we uncover timeless biblical principles and apply them to modern wealth strategy. Because faith without structure leaves you exposed. Now let's go deeper. When the 7 years of famine finally arrived, something extraordinary happened. Egypt was not desperate. Egypt was prepared. While other nations suffered, Egypt had reserves. While others begged, Egypt sold grain. While economies collapsed, Egypt gained influence. Why? Because whoever has reserves has power. Saving is not just protection. It is positioning. When you have no savings, every crisis feels catastrophic. When you have reserves, every crisis can become an opportunity. When markets fall, those without liquidity sell in fear. Those with liquidity buy with vision. When the economy slows down, the indebted panic. The prepared advance. Joseph did not merely prevent disaster. He transformed crisis into strategic advantage. That is financial leadership. And here is something many misunderstand. They believe faith and planning are opposites. But Joseph's story shows the opposite. Joseph trusted God. And he stored grain. Faith did not replace strategy. Faith inspired strategy. Believing God provides does not mean living without discipline. Believing in the future does not mean ignoring preparation. If you value tomorrow, you prepare today. So let's make this practical. If you are in a strong financial season right now, do not waste it. Do not raise your standard of spending every time your income increases. Raise your standard of reserves. Do not buy everything you can now afford. First, build a fund that gives you peace. Because true wealth is not displaying prosperity. It is sustaining stability. Most people measure success by what they can purchase. Joseph measured success by what he could store. That difference changes everything. Imagine applying this rule for 5 years. Every income that enters your life, 20% is separated first. Not negotiated. Not delayed. Not justified away. Over time, that 20% becomes an emergency fund, then investment capital, then long-term freedom. That is not fantasy. That is mathematics plus discipline. Yes, it requires character. Saving during abundance feels unnecessary. When money flows, restraint feels excessive. When business grows, conservatism feels slow. But when scarcity arrives, discipline becomes wisdom. Joseph's story reveals something deeper. Prosperity poorly managed disappears. Prosperity well managed multiplies. Egypt did not merely survive famine. It emerged stronger. You may not manage a nation, but you manage your household. You manage your income. You manage your financial decisions. The question is not how much you earn. The question is what you do with what you earn when things are going well. Anyone can spend. Not everyone can resist spending. The 20% rule is a declaration. I refuse to live only for today. You do not need to be wealthy to apply it. You need discipline. You do not need perfect income. You need consistency. You do not wait for the ideal moment. You start with what you have. If one strategic decision saved an entire nation, what could it do for your family? What could it do for your stress levels? What could it do for your opportunities? Perhaps the difference between peace and anxiety, between stability and crisis, between opportunity and desperation. Because when winter comes, and it will not ask whether you felt ready. But your discipline today will answer for you tomorrow. The 20% rule is not ancient. It is timeless. It is not merely spiritual. It is profoundly financial. It is not just history. It is strategy. So now the decision is yours. To live as if abundance will last forever. Or to build a foundation that will sustain you when everything shifts. Are you setting aside your 20%? Because summer does not last forever. But those who store in the summer do not fear the winter. If this message strengthened your perspective, subscribe to the Biblical Money Code and write in the comments. I surrender my finances to God's wisdom. Because those who lead in crisis are not the ones who earned the most. They are the ones who prepared the best.